And I think apart from them, also in 2018, I
Hmm.
was in the floods in Kerala.
Really?
I
Yeah.
had experienced the floods, and my father was critically ill.
Right.
So, what I noticed about the current generation is that they may not enjoy talking much, but
Right.
extremely pro action, which is
Right.
what we admire about them.
Wonderful.
They may not be talking about spirituality in terms of the language, which is something which both of us may be more familiar with, but they
Right.
do things so that they are able to see the result when it comes to helping and supporting people.
That's so brilliant to hear, and it's a fresh take. And yeah, and as a practicing parent, I think I would trust your intuition. So again, you're right. We work with stereotypes, and so maybe that could be a line of questioning. And Sita, before they put us online,
I'm
I thought,
sorry, you're on mute.
um, no, I'm not. Can you hear me? No.
I'm not able to hear you. No,
Okay.
I'm not on mute.
No, can you hear me? No.
You again come back.
You come back. Okay.
Yes, absolutely fine.
So what I meant was, I would perhaps, I made a few notes in the last few minutes when I was suggested that I could dialogue with you.
Sure.
And so I was perhaps, I'd let you perhaps do a fair bit of the initial talking and then perhaps round the conversation off to say, how do you, how do we even teach children this sense of joy? Is it by teaching them a sense of gratitude or mindfulness or making them more aware of their advantages and being more compassionate? And so that's where I perhaps would steer this towards.
Absolutely fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just in because you've got such a comprehensive resume, I'm sitting in some room where I don't have access to a printer, and I don't know how to see your biodata while I'm speaking with you.
It's fine. Sachdev, just keep it simple and just keep it conversational, because I definitely believe that it's what our actions really convey at the end of it all, rather than what we just say.
Right.
So I think whatever you may recall and whatever you consider as important to be shared with the audience, you can. And please do keep it brief, because
Great.
what's important is we are able to interact and give the audience the maximum effectiveness we can within this short period of 12 minutes.
So Sita, but just in respecting that you came prepared in a sense for a format, and I'm also a little bit stumped because I'm not equally matched or qualified in terms of engaging with you on this important subject. So there's one thing we could do. Well, of course, I think that the whole idea was to jump in now and build that rhythm. But if you're okay, you could do. I could just bring you in, get you, maybe make a 30 seconds of an opening remark, get you to flow, and then jump in and maybe agreeably disagree or whatever else, and that just keep going.
What is comfortable for you? Because for me, either way is fine.
Yeah.
Whatever is probably more comfortable for you, because maybe it's also because I'm talking about a subject that I relate to a lot.
No,
So when
you're
you're
right.
able to, when you're able to talk about a subject which is so much in tune with your philosophy of life, it is a little easier. But probably had we been discussing a more complex topic from my perspective, I don't think I would have been disagreeable.
But Sita, I think you should also find some time to teach adults how to be joyful. Some of them are so wealthy and they have such long faces, and I wonder what they're suffering from, right? Life is short and you might as well make the most of it. But anyways, I'm just waiting for the host to bring us in. I don't know whether we are on, or I don't think we are on, right? It's just us, right? No.
I'm not so sure. No, I don't see the host as yet.
Yeah, I think so. I think she will, I think, welcome us in.
Sure, absolutely fine. In fact, what I will just also briefly tell you what I will be touching upon. Okay.
Right.
See, what I thought I'll talk about is, see, just a line here. The World Happiness Report 2020.
Right.
Now, the number of countries or who are the countries is not what's important here.
Right.
Okay. But the fact is, you have 10 countries here, and the the number one position has been held by one country for the third year in a row.
Which is?
Finland.
Oh, really? Yeah. Very happy place.
Okay, so which is Finland. But like I said, what is important here is not the fact it's Finland or Sweden or Norway.
Right.
But the fact is, it can definitely get us to thinking about what is happiness.
Right.
Is it completely related to development? Is it completely related to the amount of money you make in a year?
Brilliant.
Or is it a lot more?
Brilliant. So that, I think, gives me a bit of a handle to kind of start off this conversation. In fact, and you're an expert, Sita, but I know the best cases, even at best courses taught, and they go the rooms full at Harvard and all that, are all about finding happiness and joy in these more what I call sublime subjects, as opposed to the more quantitative, more materially useful content. So I think there's a lot of seeking in the world amongst people. So do you have some sense to know if you're really on or just?
Actually, what I did was I had just come on to my the session,
right.
And I just clicked, and that's when you came. So
right.
I wouldn't really be able to mention, but what time are we now? Actually, I think
we are about 5 minutes
away.
Actually, into the session.
Oh dear.
Okay. But I think we've been running a little late because I'm kind of situated close to this command center they're running. So I.
All right. Do we have any attendees already?
There's some magical way of finding that, but I don't want to click on. I'll leave the floor entirely to yourself, in which case you would, with all your expertise, completely monopolize it.
No, my only concern, yeah.
No, Sita, I think this WEF host 5 is technically to bring us into the room, All right. Right now we are, I think, in the waiting room of sorts.
Okay, then.
And this is what happened in an earlier session I did today.
All right. Okay, so you're already familiar with a
I'm
session.
familiar, but the thing with these live streaming is you don't know, maybe they're seeing us figuring out the plan while we should be all ready. But I don't know. Now let me try and call someone and see.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, see, sorry about this, but I'm informed that we can just continue and maybe make up on some lost time. We've lost a valuable 5 or 6 minutes, I think.
Oh my goodness.
And so maybe you can speak very, very fast.
All right, absolutely fine. Okay, so, yeah.
I'll just formally introduce you. So we have the pleasure of hearing Sita Sagaran, an absolute expert. She's a personal development expert. She's a trainer. She's a lifestyle consultant. She's a psychology counselor. She's a hypnotherapist. She's a metaphor therapist, and an absolute expert in teaching children and figuring out what could make children happy. So why don't, on behalf of WEF, gladly welcome you, Sita. Thank you for your time and presence. And over to you now.
Thank you so much, Sachdev. But I think, like you said, I'll just probably make it a real something like a synopsis. What I was going to tell in the first place.
Right.
I believe that happiness is something that is learned during childhood.
Right.
But as a lifestyle consultant, personal development trainer, and motivational speaker, what has astounded me is that when I see parents trying their level best to nurture their child into helping them become someone
Right.
who they understand will be successful,
Right.
or someone whom they believe can be termed as successful. But what in the process, what I have noticed also is that children are not as happy as they could be. Instead, they are more prone to stress, anxiety, and
Right.
also negative emotions like envy or even jealousy.
Right.
And I personally believe that is cultivated because of the stress level that they are placed in.
And Sita, does that come from this expectation, real or otherwise, that the parents impose on children, that you must be a superstar, you must be top of the class, you must be a horse rider, you must be a pianist?
I think so. I think so. To a great extent it is, because I grew up in an environment where my father and mother had never told me to, come on, you can, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? In
Right.
fact, I was a real bad student in school.
It doesn't seem so, even if you're saying that yourself. But so that's an interesting one. But what do you think, therefore, is essential? And the other difficult question I had for you was,
Uh-huh.
what happens to children who come from more crisis-laden environments? So someone is a child in a war-torn country,
Correct.
and he or she actually doesn't need to have inhabited that fate, if you might.
Correct.
So do they get scarred for life just because life's been very, very sordid for them? And so just wanted your view on of course, normal children. And of
Correct.
course,
Correct. No, I think that's a brilliant question. I, unfortunately, despite my optimism, I'm forced to convey that there will definitely be an amount of scarring, which
right,
is very, very unlikely to go away completely,
right,
because little children are so much impacted by
right,
what happens around them that
right,
a lot of memories stay on, which is
right,
also why we often mention to people, sometimes it's the inner child that needs healing
right,
and not the adult.
right,
So you may have been hurt a lot when you were young for some reason, and that hurt could be taking definitely a lot of your happiness away in later years. You may still be very happy,
right,
but
right,
you could be even more happier if
right.
that part was probably something which you have come to terms with. Or,
But in fact, like you, Sita, since I also work with some of these corporate leaders,
Mhm,
I find that a lot of the baggage we carry, despite our extensive resume,
correct,
is because of these little scars we've had. No one has a perfect childhood, but there's
correct,
always something that seems to stay as a void, if you might, and
correct.
we then adapt overcompensating behaviors as adults to
Absolutely. I think the key here is once you realize that there is an area that you're ignoring,
right,
because it's safer to ignore, I would suggest you look at that area
right,
and work on it so
ah,
that you're able to make the best out of your life. It may make you uncomfortable, it may create fear in you, stress in you, but the better you're able to address it, the more you're able to move forward in life.
clearly shows why you're such a brilliant psychologist, right? You
You
read
know, I'm
minds.
not a psychologist.
No, you aren't. I think you are as well. But Sita, you in a brief run up to this conversation,
Yeah,
you were talking of countries that are naturally more happy, happier.
correct,
Talked of
correct.
somehow Scandinavia landing at the top, Finland,
Yes,
Denmark, Sweden. So
absolutely.
what goes on with when is it that they have a different curriculum? Is it a population issue where they just have more space to themselves and they can climb trees or ski, at leisure? Or
It's a lot of combination of factors there because I believe even in terms of what education is, I think their definition of education would be quite different
right,
from, let's say, a country like India
right,
or a country like China.
right,
Because what is education and what is education supposed to do
right,
or change a person into is something which I'm quite certain they would have looked at from a
right,
completely different perspective.
right,
So if I'll just, like I said, keep it as a in a very short synopsis. From my perspective and from my learning, I would say is that as much as possible, help the child celebrate life. And celebrate life doesn't mean we have to buy things to make them happy. No,
right,
it
yeah,
could be just spending time with the child.
right,
Because I grew up in a family environment where there was not an abundance of wealth, but there was an abundance of love.
right. Likewise, yes. Right,
And I think that creates a huge impact and self belief. No matter what teachers, no matter if none of the people around the child see anything special in the child, make sure you see something special in your child.
right, right,
In my life, it was my dad.
right,
No matter every time we would go to parent teacher meetings and the teacher just shakes her head, he was always so optimistic. He would say,
right,
you can do it, you can do it.
right,
So I think having nurturing self-belief, practicing gratitude,
right,
thanking for every single thing in your life, that is something which the child can also pick up. Nurture creativity. If your child is creative, nurture it. Belief in altruism, helping out people. It doesn't
right.
matter who they are. Just stepping in and helping out.
So this is an interesting one, Sita. I once heard from a friend that he was teaching his child to write to anyone on the planet, even imaginary, a letter of solace, right? You lost your mother or father, these things shouldn't happen, but I'm around for you. Or petting a hurt animal or something like that. And all that, I think, builds up compassion and a sense of connectedness. Right?
Absolutely. In fact, what I would suggest is allow the child to be a part of the charity activities that you do.
Right,
You don't have to tell your child, help people, help people. Let
right,
the child see you help people.
right,
Like for example, even in someone who we know in India, we
right,
found out that the lady's husband contracted AIDS and passed away.
right,
And everyone was just literally standing idle and wondering, oh, it's such a pity, it's such a pity. But my dad just stepped in and had started helping out the family.
correct.
So in other words, you don't have to wait to be called. If you are able to just help out, and your child will see that.
And I like this great insight you're giving us, because action actually speaks louder than words in some ways, right? And you can put all this in the curriculum and tell children how to be grateful and joyful and write an essay, but that's different from seeing it up close and personal.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think apart from, of course, altruism, it's speaking up without fear for the right. Make them fearless in terms of standing up for perhaps someone who's getting hurt or abused.
Right,
So I think that would also help. And spirituality. I'm sure there might be several people in the audience who may not feel very comfortable about my next suggestion to make their child happy. But that is, let the child believe that spirituality is not based on religion, but a way of life.
so there's a universal type of consciousness there.
Absolutely. And a huge sense of tolerance as well.
Right,
Because if your actions, thoughts, and your words are resonating with
right.
what you can do to help others, what more will God want from us?
Agreed. So, what may be some recommendations you have, both to perhaps people in academics listening into you, and or of course parents, to weave the sense of teaching joy more naturally? What may be 3, 4, 5 things? Because I think that may be the biggest takeaway from them, right?
Sure. Well, the first one would be, please do not hesitate to say no to your child when required.
Right.
because
Saying
because
no is important, is it? Yeah.
it is, because what I've noticed is when parents are in a situation to provide for children
Right.
things that the child wants because their best friend has got it, a
Correct.
lot of parents feel compelled, no, I don't want my child to miss out on that.
Right.
But the question you need to ask your child is it important to you? How
Right.
is it important to you? How does it add value to you?
Right.
Because I think that makes a difference, because I grew up here in Dubai,
Right.
and it's not a matter of what I wanted, it's is it important enough? And
Right.
that question was asked also, not just when the family also, I would say, gradually, the financial situation also had improved tremendously. The question remained the same.
In
So
fact,
it's not that,
this is also what I believe Bill Gates and his wife Melinda have done. They haven't necessarily um, pandered their children with every request any growing up child might have. They've treated them with the sense of purpose or seeing value in things. But do you think the new generation of children need to be treated differently, because everyone in class has a mobile phone and a nicer one, and that one takes better pictures, and won't they be doing you a favor by taking your picture on Parents' Day, whatever else?
all right.
Yeah.
Well, I would say the first step would be to get your children to be absolutely themselves with you, so
Right.
that they can talk to you about anything under the sun, so
Right.
that you're able to share a very honest relationship with them.
Right.
That they don't have to doubt your intentions. So
Correct.
you're telling them something which is something that you consider as important. Communicate it to them, telling them that please think about it.
Right.
You may be in a position to buy, but think about, is it really important?
Right.
Or shall we do something else instead of going for that purchase, or instead of doing something?
Right. And Sita, what's your view? Because, like it or not, social media has an all-pervasive influence,
Yes.
including on adult minds, right? So, and
Right.
naturally, on innocent minds, it can be a little, in brackets, corrupting, meaning because they're not necessarily mature to see a situation in entirety. So,
True.
what's your recommendation? What's your antidote to countering such negative influences? You hear of young children with a large following of fans on Instagram or something, and then just killing themselves simply. And I don't know what was shot in their lives, but
True, true. I understand. In fact, once again, I'll have to come back to the point about being close to your child.
right,
So close that your child does not probably have a friend as close as you.
right. So he or she must confide in you all the good and bad in their lives, and you must
Absolutely. Because the moment the child is able to do that, you're able to step in and
right,
help the child, because whatever you find in terms of the so-called friends on social media, the child will also understand to keep the expectations low. And
right.
just because you might have a huge list of people who know you on social media, that does not make them your friends.
You seem like an almost perfect mother, right? And
Oh, I'm far from it. You should get my children board. Far from it.
so I think we are perhaps a couple of minutes towards the finish, but I'm sure you have a lot more to say, and maybe in some ways my questions have veered the conversation in ways not meant to be. So if there's anything else that's important, maybe from the book you've written, maybe from and I was just keen about this metaphor therapy. What does that mean? I mean, was that specific to children, or is it?
In fact, you can definitely use the therapy on children. My only concern is if we go a little bit on to that, I wouldn't be able to talk about two more areas which I wanted to speak with regard
Please,
to this subject. So probably we can have this conversation offline some
right,
other time, because
right,
we have two more. So with
right.
your permission, sorry,
Please,
Cecily.
right, right.
One more after the spirituality. I think that point. The
Right.
next one would be teaching happiness through lifestyle and optimism.
Okay.
When I say lifestyle and optimism, I'm talking about when children come to you and say they are bored.
Right.
Get them to find out for themselves what are the things they enjoy doing
Right.
and how can they probably get better at it.
Right.
Because I think that makes a huge difference. Today, even if it's an 18-hour flight, I'm thrilled.
Right. Right.
Because there'll be always something that I can do at that time, which I don't find time otherwise. And the last point would be teaching self-control. I think that the topic we were discussing a little earlier.
Right.
Because when you're teaching children self-control, it becomes a lot more easier for them to say no to things which they believe personally they don't need. It doesn't matter if their friends have it or not.
Right. You also mentioned diet as a point, Sita. So are you saying it's time we say no to sugared colored drinks?
Oh, no. In fact, no, not really, not that. Just that, let's just say if you're able to cultivate eating habits,
Right.
which are more home oriented,
Right.
and probably get them to engage in the kitchen a little more. Perhaps they can also step inside and also try a little bit in the kitchen on how things work, what can they prepare.
Brilliant.
It can also make it more interesting for them and more fun for the family.
Right. So unfortunately, I think it's a wrap now, Sita. We've
Sure.
come to the end of the session. I do see speakers lined up for the next one.
Sure.
But honestly, it's been such a pleasure speaking with you. I'm sure the audience has taken away copious notes, and you'll have a much larger fan following this conversation. I look forward to interacting with you. Thank you very much on behalf of Women Economic Forum. There's an award I perhaps have to give you, but I am not sure how to do that. So do you mind receiving that at some stage a little bit later, because I don't quite know how to present that virtually. It's there somewhere. Maybe there's a little.
No issues. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and keep the joy on. It clearly shows in your countenance. It's full of happiness and serenity and peace. And may God bless your family and your children.
Thank you. Wishing you the very best too. I'm looking forward to listening to my speakers also who are part of the session.
All right. Okay.
Looking forward to that.
Sure. So what do we, so I think we'll have to leave the session. Is that what it is or no?
I wish I could have helped you, Sachdev, but I'm extremely poor when it comes to technology.
So let me just give me a second, ladies. I'll try and figure out. There. Please continue. Okay, good. So I think you stay in the room, right? And I'm sorry, maybe the award should have been announced to you 30 minutes later. I just changed the deal a little bit. I brought the good news up front. Can we welcome Sharmi and Marni to the conversation? Hi, do you want to come into the room? Oh, you're there already. Yeah, okay. You want to unmute yourselves?
Here we go. Hi, I'm Marni.
Hi, Marni. So good to see you.
Nice to be here.
Are you dialed in from your private island home in Florida?
Actually, that's really funny. I actually do live on an island in Florida. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that in the Tampa Bay?
Yes, south of Tampa Bay, St. Petersburg. Yep.
Yeah. There used to be a lovely Dali museum somewhere around there.
Right, like a mile and a half, 2 miles from my house.
Oh, really? Okay, perfect. So we approximately were.
The winding stairs.
Right. Thank you for your presence and your inspiration to the world over the Women Economic Forum. Sharmi, warm welcome to you as well.
Thank you.
And I know all of you have very extensive resumes and accomplishments, and I'm sure the speaker bios will say it all. But I think in the interest of time, would it be okay if we jump straight into the conversation?
Sure.
Sure. Thank you. Mami, would you be able to speak closer to the microphone? Your voice is coming a little faint here over the internet.
Not bad. Is that better?
No, I think I think Sita is not able to hear. Sharmi is not able to hear. And
Let's see if if I can suggest anything else here. I've got me on full volume that I have potential. So maybe I will try to speak louder.
Right. Yeah, sure. Maybe you'll have to, yeah, lean over your computer or whatever, and yeah, the microphone.
Oh, it's right here, so I can.
All right, here. Okay, perfect. Okay, so we are in conversation with you on this topic of faith in the times of crisis. So vital in this stage because everyone's clutching on thin straws, either for finding the vaccine very, very quickly, accelerated development of the vaccine, whether to build herd immunity. We're trying everything possible. We are practicing social distancing across the world. There is a global economic shutdown. So I think people are deeply confused and paralyzed. And somewhere I think our leaders are being tested, uh, much that they might have political will. They don't quite know what is the magic wand they need to wave to send this away. And people, there are views that this might stay for a bit. So I think both of you are experts at believing in the power of thinking positive and acting with conviction. When I was growing up, I used to get very inspired by a gentleman called Viktor Frankl, who survived Auschwitz and wrote this very definitive book called Man's Search for Meaning, where as they waited for the Allied troops to free them from the prisons in Auschwitz, the ghettos or the gas chambers, uh, Mr. Frankl says that some of them died because they just gave up hope. They saw the turnaround, but it never came in time, and hope abandoned them before help came. So, so Mani, do you want to go first and tell us what your take is? I think you've been an inspirational speaker. You've written 13 books or something, is what I gathered. So, from all that vault of knowledge, can you guide humanity and some of us here listening into it?
Yeah. So first of all, thank you. It's so great to be here, and thanks, Becca, for introducing me. I think that the very first thing I want to say is that you are going to have trouble in life, whether it's COVID or whether it's something else. You're
Right.
going to have trouble. And so when I look back at my life, I've lived through fires and floods and tornado, a sinking boat, car wrecks, ambulance rides, sudden death in the family, head injury in the family.
You look very cheerful for all that.
I know. See, now the reason I include those here is because I am not the kind of person who just says, have a positive attitude and everything will be great.
Right.
The reality is that life is tough.
Right.
COVID is tough.
Right.
And how do we balance faith with reality that's hitting us in the face and saying, you're in pain, this is very hard. So I think the first thing though is to step back and to make sure that we believe that what's true is true. So if we were to say that before any plant can grow, you have to take a seed and you have to stick it underground.
Right.
What is the experience of that seed? The experience of the seed is complete darkness, separation, hopelessness. It has to die and then can burst forth the plant of the beautiful flower or the fruit or whatever we need.
So you must climb out of the trough of despair and then find joy and hope.
You have to say, this is true. I'm alone. I'm buried. It's dark. Nobody cares. Nobody sees. Nobody knows.
Right.
This is horrible. This is painful. But you have to trust that if you will just leave that seed right where it's supposed to be, that the water will come, the worms will come, the sun will come. It will sprout. It will grow into something good. And now I believe that in everything that happens to us, whether good or bad, there is a seed there,
right,
for more good or for more bad.
Right.
So if it's good, there's more good available or there's bad available. For example, you could take something really good and it could make you really prideful and really difficult to be around.
Right.
Something good. Now, if you could take something very bad and it could crush you absolutely, or it could be the seed that bursts into something much bigger than the pain that you experience.
Wonderful.
Stage. So I believe that what we need to be looking for in COVID, and we're seeing it everywhere, I believe what we need to be looking for is what is the good that can come during and after this pandemic.
Right. But Mommy, just a quick follow-up question before we hear Shami's comments. Uh, how do you build this sense of resilience? Because the point is, I think each one of us is built with a certain innate mental strength. It could come from the upbringing we had. It could be, more rooted beliefs that our families left us with. But in my conversation earlier with Sita, I was saying you could be, for example, a child of a war-stricken family, right? And even if you are a good person, circumstances would make you feel generally hopeless or helpless. So how do you build what I call lowest common denominator courage? How do you get people to subscribe to the fact that more good is generally possible than bad, or something can come out of it?
So I believe you have to reframe what you're seeing as bad. You have to
Right,
say, inside of everything, good, bad, or indifferent, there is the potential for good. And
right,
so, okay, so we all think of heaven, this wonderful place that is perfect.
right,
And we all think of hell, this terrible place that is awful.
right,
But we live on earth. Right now, we live on earth. We are
right,
in the middle place. We've got hell and we've got heaven all going on all the time, all around us.
right,
The question is, what are you going to choose? So we all have to choose for eternity, but we all have to choose right now, right here in this moment. Am I going to choose to believe that there is good in this, or am I going to choose to believe that because it feels bad, it must be hell on
right,
continually? So does it feel terrible to get in a car crash? Yes, it feels terrible. It is terrible. You can't get around that. That is awful. It's terrible. You can't just say to your brain, this is great.
but stuff happens. Yeah,
Right, stuff happens, right. So you take, as long as it takes you to grieve the loss of the car, the time, the money, the everything that you lost in that. Take as
right,
long as that takes, and then embrace the reality that if this felt that bad, there is something even better, brighter, good coming my way because I had to experience this bad thing. It happened. There's a seed in it. What am I going to water? Am I going to water the belief that something good can come out of this and I can start by helping the people around me or encouraging the people who are helping me? Or am I going to just be angry? Am I going to sow and water and grow those negative emotions that because this happened, life is terrible and I'm an awful person and there's no future for me? Everything that we go through, we have a choice to how we're going to address it. And the key to changing how you've been doing it is to believe that that's true. If you don't believe that your response has any difference and makes any difference to your life, you will never change your response.
I think we can certainly do with a lot of your optimism. I think we need that in double dose more than the vaccine, I think, at this stage, Mommy. So I will just request Shami to come in at this stage. Shami, sorry to keep you waiting, and I know you're like a cage tiger pacing the cage.
No
Too.
problem.
So,
It's always a delight to hear a co-speaker. So,
right,
I think you must have seen me pacing around like a cage tiger at 6 o'clock,
right,
wondering when can I listen to them? When can I listen to them? Because I really wanted to listen to Marnie, and I'm so grateful to her for sharing something so profound, and I want to
wonderful,
just carry that forward. And last night I was talking to a client, and
right,
in my coaching session, and
right,
I was talking to her that when failure strikes, faith is tested.
right,
And right now we are not in a failure, but we are the seed in the darkness, as Marnie said.
right,
And right now it is going to be us who get to decide, what are we operating from? And are we operating from fear, which is at the end of the day a false evidence appearing real, or faith and love, which is the ultimate reality?
right,
And if I choose operate from fear, then my seed is just going to stay there and it will
Right.
die, like, the death, the
Right.
metamorphosis that we're going through, worldwide. I just feel that, if I choose to, cover that up with a lot of fear, a lot of doubt, a lot of insecurity, and I don't, choose love, every single time we have choice. And my choice has always been love,
Right.
because I'm an angel therapist, I'm an angel coach, and
Right.
I've written episodes and episodes in my book about it as well,
You want
that
to give us some examples,
faith got
Sharmi?
tested.
You want to give us some
Sorry.
examples of how that works? I mean, just how.
Sure, in just a minute.
Yeah.
So, when I was thinking of the pandemic, I,
Right.
I discovered my own word, and I call it the love demic.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, because it is fear that is being fed to us in
Right.
every possible way.
Right.
Some people are saying, oh, there is this big guy who's controlling all of us, and we're going to be 3G'd, 5G'd, we're going to have these chips inside of us, and everything is going to be controlled, blah, 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 blah. And then I'm like, okay, but I don't choose this. I choose love. And love can come if you have faith. And to begin with, you need to have faith in yourself.
Right.
Do I believe in myself? And can I choose love in this moment to operate out of? And some of us will choose religion, some of us will choose spirituality, and
Right.
some of us will just choose ourselves. How can I be the best version of myself? Having faith in myself, so that all I'm doing in this moment is that I am breathing. There's oxygen, yes. And, I have a roof above my head, yes.
Right.
I have
Absolutely.
bed to sleep, yes. I have clothes to wear, yes. And my faith says this too shall pass,
Beautiful.
and it passes.
Yeah.
So we've conquered the pandemic with faith,
Right.
as Marnie would agree, halfway down. We're
Right.
halfway done. We've
Right.
survived it. And
Right.
the more love we spread, the more the pandemic will go away.
Right.
And we'll make it a love demic.
That's a nice spin to things. Certainly very positive. Certainly
Yeah.
full of hope. But again, two questions to you.
Yeah.
One is, I think what you're saying certainly applies to many of us who, as
Yeah.
you said, are at least reasonably well positioned in life or by fate, that we
Right.
have a roof over our head, we have shelter.
Yeah.
What about these thousands of migrant workers that, for example, we see in India,
Mm-hmm.
whose faith is tested because they just seem abandoned, including by everyone, including God, for example, because they're walking hundreds of miles back home. They don't understand the logic and the science behind the lockdown, all of which
Yeah.
may have been for their good. Uh, they just are driven by some strange conviction to go back and die if needed back in their villages, and not in their places of work, because those are displaced homes. So
Yeah.
it's a very strange thing. Similarly, if you're coming off a boat in Syria into Europe, you're just hoping that the boat will bring you to a safe shore. And what if it doesn't? And what if it does to three members of the family and not to two? I'm talking of slightly unequal, unfair situations.
Yeah.
And I know this is very wrong, because then I'm using the extremely difficult part of the question to unleash on optimists. All three of you are great optimists, and that's not. But I was just trying to see, because that's what happens. I
Yeah.
mean, I've seen this happen to a friend of mine who had, in a sense, a broken marriage. He lost his job. Some other thing happened, and it just came like a ton of bricks. And then he just
Yeah.
believed it was some bad star
Yeah.
or a dark cloud over hovering. And so, what's your take on this? Both you and Marmy.
My question to The people who did get affected, and yes, there are some who are the destitute, and they really did not receive the help.
Right.
But like, let's say, for example, your friend, if my biggest question to him would be, did you operate out of faith, or did you operate out of fear that was being fed to you, which you were not even sure was real?
Right.
What did you buy into in that moment? Because the universe is mighty vast, it's mighty abundant, it's mighty loving, it is intelligent, and everything you give to the universe comes back to you multifold.
Correct.
So what is it that you fed into the programming of you and of your life, of what it's going to look like? Did you buy into what was being told to you from the idiot box? Or did you read about it, and did you like sit and discuss it, like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, apocalypse? Did you get into that mode, or
Right.
did you turn inward, and did you really ask yourself, okay, what is it that I truly desire, and how much faith do I have in that being above me, God, angel, source, universe, creator? I don't know, whatever word, Allah, doesn't matter. When the doors of temples and mosques and churches also shut, what was God trying to tell you? He was asking you to turn to the God here.
Right.
And if you truly believe that there is a God here, whether a mosque or a mandir or a church will not make a difference of existing or not existing in your life.
Right.
And I think a lot of faith-based people, I'm not talking in the religious context, but
Correct.
people who do have a lot of faith in themselves, in their life, in the divine plan, the divine being, are not often visitors to these places, because we take responsibility of what we think and what we manifest and where we operate from. So once again, I would come back to my first statement, where I said that when fear strikes, faith gets tested.
Beautiful.
And some of us, are sailing through it, and a lot of us were the Titanics in it.
Right.
You know, I'd love to know Marnie's views, though.
Yeah, so I think faith is awesome. In fact, faith is the required ingredient. And
Yeah.
even in the Bible, God says, without faith, you can't please Him. You have to believe He exists and that He's a rewarder. That something good is going to come if you believe. So if you think about back to the Viktor Frankl example, then should
Right.
he have had faith to put his ladder against the faith wall that says, I'm going to be free, I'm going to be healthy, I'm going to be home, everything's going to be perfect?
Right.
Or should he put his faith against, I'm here, this is my reality, I am going to believe that something good can come out of even this?
Right.
Because where you put your ladder is going to depend on where you end up. And both of them, you can have faith, but you may not ever get to what you were hoping for. You may find yourself like your friend in horrific situations with everything seemingly going wrong all at once. And
Right.
the question of faith is not, is this all going to turn out perfect and I'm going to be very happy and we're going to get the marriage back together and everything's going to be great again? That is the question. The question is there potential for good in this situation? And if you will say, yes, I believe by faith that there is. Can I tell one story?
Yeah, please.
We owned a large building, and it was right after the recession. We found out that this building was going to become vacant, and we went about to sell it, but we realized that the zoning and the coding in our area had changed. So we couldn't rent it, we couldn't sell it, we couldn't give it back, we couldn't do anything. We were
Right.
stuck with this huge building that was going to cost us tax money, insurance money, upkeep money, so the pipes wouldn't break, and we couldn't do anything about it. As we started down this path of realizing we were really stuck with this gigantic building,
Right. I mean, just
and
so unfair. Yeah.
so unfair, and we brought in consultants and we looked every different way with the bankers and with everybody, and we were really stuck. And as we were going through this process, I could have done two things, of course, multiple things, but I could have had two perspectives. I could have said, this is horrible and there is no solution. No one we're going to can give me a solution for this. Or I could have said, by faith, I'm going to believe that something good is going to come out of this.
Right.
And so because I am a faithful person, I
Right.
chose faith. And I just started, God just did in my heart, I put this little phrase that I started saying all the time. Thank you, God, for sending the perfect buyer on the perfect day, in the perfect way, with the perfect pay.
Wow. Okay.
Over and over and over. And I knew when I said it, I knew that it wasn't going to be perfect like my perfect, like what I would have wanted. It's going to be God's perfect for me. And so I was just prepared to take God's perfect. So for 2 years, every time the thought of worry, concern, financial strain, whatever it was, came about that crazy big building, I would just kick right into, thank you, God,
Right.
perfect buyer on the perfect day with perfect pay in the perfect way. And I would just believe that. And whether I was sweeping or driving or serving a client or trying to go to sleep, whenever it was, I would just repeat by faith what I believed was true.
Right.
And about 2 years later, a buyer came forward and paid the asking price.
Wow.
And at the closing of that sale, I said to the agent, the buyer was there, I said to the agent, I said, what are they going to use the building for? I'm just so curious. I mean, it couldn't be
Right.
coding or anything. I said, what are they going to use the building for? And he said, I don't think they know. They don't have a plan.
Right. Wow. It was a perfect plan for you, though.
We were free. So when we think about seeds of faith, if you think about different seeds, whatever you plant is going to grow. You cannot plant a pumpkin seed and get a squash or get a mushroom. Whatever you plant, that's what's going to grow. So if you're going to plant something good. Plant something by faith that you think is going to be good, like a perfect outcome from God's perspective. That's what I'm going to believe for.
That's a terrific story. Yeah.
Then water that. The other thing is that you have to know that when you plant that seed, you don't have any idea how long it's going to take.
Correct.
If it's just a normal plant, it'll pop up and be in full bloom within a couple months. If it's an acorn tree, it might take 70 years.
Right.
You don't know. All you know is that you have a choice. Whenever that thing comes to mind, you have a choice. Am I going to give in to the worry, concern that is literally here? You know, and I love that acronym too, fear, false evidence appearing real, but there's actually some fear that's legit. Like, for example, when I'm coming up to a railroad train track and the lights are flashing and the bars are coming down, I should have a little cautionary fear there. I should not just
Right.
You know, I mean, there's things that are actually really, truly terrifying.
Right.
And I think we have to face the fact that, like in my situation, that was really bad. We were in a very tough spot.
Right.
But I had a choice. Am I going to give in to that even real fear? Or am I going to give in to faith, which is going to allow me to actually party right now in the middle of my disaster? I would just start saying that over and over again. I am waiting for the perfect buyer on the perfect day with the perfect pay in the perfect way.
Lovely. That's a great story. And very inspiring, must say, really. And so, Shami, any thoughts on what Marni said?
So actually, you asked me for a story. So
Right.
I think now is the right time to bring in another story.
Right.
And you know, I'm a very what you see is what you get sort of a person.
Right.
And I recently had a very major failure in my career,
Right.
where I wasn't cleared by an institute to be a trainer with them.
Right.
And you know, I realized that, you know, and Louise Hay says this, you know, it's all right to grieve the loss before you move on.
Right.
And you know, people have this mistaken understanding about, you know, people having faith and people choosing to have faith.
Right.
And their understanding is that, oh, you know, they are these happy, preppy, woohoo, goody two shoes, Mary Poppins sort of people.
Right.
That's not true.
No.
That's really not true. I guarantee it. It's
Really?
not true. So, you know, I had this failure and I was like, no, not okay. Angels, you got me there. You got me to do this. And I'm an angel therapist. So, you know, I have this friendly, fun sort of a relationship with them. And so I said, you got me there. You got me trained, and then you got me rejected. That's not okay. I don't accept this. And I cried and I howled, and I'm like, this or better, this or better, this
Wow.
or better. And then came along the pandemic.
Right.
And and then came along something else that completely refined my perception, which was a coaching program. And this is like absolutely yesterday's talk. And in these 12 weeks of experiencing what I experienced and having the faith that whatever turmoil, whatever, ragram patti basically that is supposed to happen, I had to be like, scraped and scraped and
Right.
scraped to shine
Right.
like a diamond,
Right.
and I had to take that scraping and I had to welcome that. I had to welcome that scraping. I had to welcome the tumbling and the polishing. And I had to welcome every emotion that came along with it while I don't lose my faith, because I said, this or better, this or better, this or better. I'm not taking no for an answer. So
You
like
will the
like the
universe
way
to follow
she,
you. Yeah.
huh?
You will the universe to follow you.
Yeah, I said, you know what? Fine. I followed what you asked me to. I failed at it. Now you give me a better path out of it. And yesterday I realized how beautifully they got me out of a very horrific situation, because
Wonderful.
right now that institute has shut doors.
Oh, okay.
So I and I just launched my book and I am about to register my academy. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, how does it get any better than this?
Right.
You know? And it always restores my faith in what I truly believe, which is angels. And I know that they have my back.
Right. So I think if you look at life with a sense of gratitude, often I think we tend to put certain numbers to our achievements, our progress. This should have happened. I put in this much, very much like financial markets, right?
Yeah.
And do you think, therefore, that's a nicer way to live, because then at least you accept the highs and the lows with more equanimity?
Like you said, something as solid as a stock market, and my husband is a stockbroker.
Oh, wow. Okay. You're in
So,
good hands.
and everything is very solid.
Right.
Everything is very solid. It's right there. It's put in numbers for you to
Right.
see.
Right.
But how do you feel when you see it? Do you feel love or do you feel fear once again?
Interesting.
How do you feel about it? And if somebody's company crashed, how does it connect with you?
Right.
How are you connected with this? Sure, go ahead, send them the love, send them the light, and you continue to believe what you truly believe in, which is your faith that says this or better,
Right.
or better,
So
this
that's a
or
great
better.
mantra to take away. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm sure. I think the clock says we are past the hour.
Yeah.
Time's up, sir. So time's up. So what do I do now? Okay. So I must thank all the three of you, Sita, Marni, and Sharmi, for an excellent conversation. I think you left us with much advice that can benefit many of people in the audience. Women and men will really benefit from all the good and affirmative things you left us with. Um, can I be forgiven about this awards bit? I think I'm supposed to give you an award.
Okay.
But okay, so let me once again thank you and really deeply appreciate your time and presence and look forward to staying in touch. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Thank you, Marnie. Thank you, Sita. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lovely
Wishing
meeting
you
you.
all the
Bye.
best.
Thank you.
Cheers.